Hello, guys. My name is Noah from Simple Betterment, and welcome to Mental Health Monday. Mental Health Monday is a video series that I'm starting where I put a link in the comments where you guys can give me suggestions on mental health topics to cover, completely anonymous responses, and I will answer them in the next video for you. I'm not going to take away too much time. I'm just going to jump right into our first Mental Health Monday. So today I've been given the video suggestion of anxiety and addiction, and specifically on porn and lusting. So I've already covered anxiety and my own personal struggles with it. And if you want me to do a separate video, I will. So today I'm going to cover how to combat addiction, specifically with porn and lusting. Um, it's an addiction that I think many people that I know personally have struggled with, including myself. I've struggled with it my whole life, starting from probably when I was about 12 years old to even now. I still struggle with these things quite frequently. And it's pretty hard to overcome, but it's not impossible, and I've definitely overcome it before. And you still will struggle with a lot of things that you overcome, but this is going to teach you how you can overcome it and how you can continue staying away from those things. I know not everyone here is Christian like I am, but I like to go to the Bible when it comes to any sort of question or any sort of problem in my life. So I'm going to open up with a Bible verse for those who don't believe and don't particularly love the Bible. Um, I would say don't let that discount anything else I say in this video. The rest of this video will be remotely not involving the Bible and will teach you practical ways you can too. But I would also encourage you to listen to at least the messaging that the Bible is portraying, even if you don't agree with the religion. So the first thing I want to bring up, the first verse that I want to open up with is Matthew 5:28, and it says, "But I say to you, whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart." This applies to men and women, not just men, um, and can be applied multiple ways. Essentially, it's saying that lusting at someone is bad, and if you are lusting with someone, you are essentially committing adultery in your heart, whether or not you've actually done an adulterous act or not. Um, I know not everyone may believe that, but that is one thing that the Bible brings up to talk about the dangers of lusting and how terrible it can be. So, for steps towards freedom, I have them marked out in four different steps that I'm going to give you guys, and I'll elaborate on each one. We're going to start out with the first step that I think is the most important way to get over any form of addiction, especially when it comes to porn and lust, and that is forgiveness. You cannot overcome an addiction without forgiving yourself, mostly, because usually addictions revolve yourself, and you are feeling super guilty that you keep falling back into addiction, but you feel so guilty that it's hard for you to break out of it, and you feel like you're putting all this pressure on yourself to break the addiction and to try harder, and a lot of times that just leaves you running back to addiction again and again and again, and there's no real progress that is made. So I would say the first thing you need to do is you need to forgive yourself, as you cannot overcome something that you feel too guilty about and you feel like a failure for. Um, this can also involve forgiving other people. Sometimes people form addictions because they're angry at other people, they're holding grudges, they're upset, and that kind of forms a sort of trauma in them that feels incomplete. And as a way of trying to feel complete, you go and you attach to an addiction for comfort. So forgiveness is has a key role when it comes to getting out of addiction, especially lust and pornography. Um, but I would say that's the first step of kind of recognizing your problem and giving yourself the forgiveness that you need in order to move on and take the proper action. So we're going to first um, talk about taking action after we forgive ourselves and we have lent forgiveness. And the second step is going to be finding your trigger. So I know the word trigger can be, very overused. People are like, oh, I get triggered when people say, certain offensive things and it makes me upset, or I get triggered whenever I see certain things and it makes me think about other things. And some people think, oh, there's now the stigma behind trigger. Anything can trigger anyone at any time. And while that can kind of be true, that's not what this is about. This is about your specific life and the specific things that cause you to want to fall into addiction. So, what do I mean by that? Well, addictions are usually a way to escape the world or to get rid of a problem or to evade a problem, right? So, generally, people are going to have a problem, have an issue that they don't like. They're going to feel bad because of this issue, and then they're going to run to an addiction, right? For me, a lot of times I feel kind of like, I don't know, either unfulfilled or um, if I feel bad, like I have a headache or something, then I immediately want to run to an addiction. Or if I feel bad about myself, I have some sort of self hatred, I will run to an addiction to find comfort. And it's just about learning the certain things that cause you to want to fall into this addiction or want to go back to your addiction. Um, Heartbreak is another common one for most people. Self hatred, depression, anxiety can be one. Whenever you get in arguments with people, sometimes people tend to run off and they want to leech onto a vice or an addiction as a coping mechanism, and then it just makes it all worse. So the second step is going to be finding out what triggers you personally and what causes you to want to fall into addiction. And what you need to do is you need to do your best to avoid all of those triggers. I know sometimes people have triggers that happen, in public places. So if you get anxiety and anxiety causes you to want to fall into an addiction or to run back to an addiction, obviously you're in a public place. It's pretty hard to avoid that trigger, right? It's pretty hard to avoid, like a large crowd or a loud environment that's making you anxious. You can do things like running to the bathroom. You can look at your phone. You can bring headphones places with you. Not all of these are the greatest things to do to avoid the trigger in the first place, but they are some things that can help in those specific situations. But I would just say, in general, you want to avoid any situation that's going to cause you to run back to lust or run back to pornography. Um, as fighting it is just going to make it take over your mind and take over your space, and that's just not going to help you out of the addiction. um, so the third step is kind of piggybacking off of that, which is acting once you're triggered. So I wrote down in my notes here, replace the addiction with another thing that gives you comfort. That does not mean another addiction, okay? Common thing to do, common thing that addicts do. I myself have done this multiple times. Is, oh well, I'm not drinking alcohol anymore, so I'm just going to run back to porn because that will help me get off the alcohol. Well, now that I'm watching porn again, I will just go to back to the alcohol or go to nicotine to help me get off of porn. Those things are going to be incomplete coping mechanisms, and replacing an addiction with a different addiction is not going to help you heal from the addiction in the first place. So you need to replace it with good things that give you comfort, such as hanging out with your friends, engaging in some sort of hobby, whether it's drawing, gaming, you know, working out. It's a great one. Going for runs. Going shopping can be good. You don't want to be like, oh, I feel like I'm going to relapse back into pornography, or I'm gonna sleep with this person, and I'm really struggling with trying not to. Why don't I just go spend $300? You can't always do that with shopping. You got to be careful there. But just going out in public in general is usually better. You want to avoid being alone as much as possible. And then if your lust issue revolves around your boyfriend, your girlfriend, or your partner, um, I would say you don't want to be alone with the person that is either causing you to lust or you're having issues containing your lustful desires around. Um, if that's something that has become a problem in your life, and you're having issues with it, or you don't want to do it anymore, or you feel like you're engaging in sexual activity too much or with too many people or whatever, you want to avoid being around anyone that you could engage in that with, or you would be able to engage in that with, and you want to go hang out with people who would not encourage you First off, that's one important thing. You don't want to be with friends who are going to be like, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal, dude. Like, it's just sex. It's not that big of a deal." If you have an issue with it and you don't want to do that anymore, or you feel like you're having a problem with it, you need to find friends who are going to support you in that. And anyone who's not going to support you in your decisions, especially when it comes to quitting addictions, is not really your friend. Um, but another thing you can do is you can like cook, you can clean, anything that really will just kind of ease any form of anxiety, any form of stress, because generally addiction is caused by some sort of stressor, um, and triggered by some sort of stressor. Um, I personally like to pray. For those who are not religious, this might not apply. But I would even argue that if you're not religious, maybe try it one time. You never know. You can always just pray and so, hey God, I'm struggling with this, and that might bring you comfort. It doesn't for everyone, but that's always my go-to in the situation. And then the last step that I'm going to give you guys is to give grace. It's very, very hard to break addictions. It's not impossible. I've done it multiple times, but the chances are sometimes you will end up slipping back, right? Or sometimes you'll have a relapse or you'll have some sort of slip up. Relapse can be a strong word for addictions, but relapsing is really just going back to something that you had a hard time quitting and were addicted to in some sort of way. If you got 9 months, you've been celibate, and you go to a party and you hook up with a girl or a guy or somebody, and then you feel really bad afterwards. You're like, oh, I've broken this. I've broken my 9 months of celibacy. I've been so good for so long. If you just keep that mentality of like, oh, I screwed up, oh, I failed, or oh, I'm never going to overcome this because I can't even keep going, like, without giving yourself grace, you're just going to keep falling back. You're going to keep repeating the pattern. If I were to break a 9 month celibacy and I would just sit there and be really hard on myself, I'd feel bad, and then I would be like, oh, I feel bad about myself. Well, what's going to make me feel better is going out and having sex with somebody or watching porn, and then the cycle just repeats over and over again. So you have to realize, it takes time. This kind of goes back to forgiving yourself and the first step, but it's a little different. It takes time to break an addiction. You got to be patient, and I would just say you should focus on the progress that you're making and not the setbacks. You can always look back and go, a year ago, I wouldn't have even thought like this. I wouldn't even have this thought. It would just been second nature to me, and it wouldn't have even mattered to me. And now that I'm thinking about it, that's progress in and of itself. The fact that I went a period of time quitting and then, screwed up is progress. Like, I would have never have done that. I would never cared to do that before. And I think people forget that perfection is not possible, and people are very inclined to say, "Oh, you will never be perfect. You'll never be perfect," when it's something that they know that they can't do. But whenever it's something that they feel like they should be able to do, they don't ever give themselves grace and realize that no one's ever going to be perfect. So, just realize you should focus on progress. Focusing on your setbacks is just going to make you feel worse about yourself. It's going to make you not want to quit again. It's getting you stuck in the cycle of addiction. And seek community as well. Seek a community who's going to give you grace, who's going to help you out, who's going to lift you up. You do want friends who are going to keep you accountable, who are going to say, hey, man, I understand you're struggling with this. You did really good. Now we got to get back on the train. You messed up. You got to get back on the train, breaking this addiction. And that's who you want to be your friend. That's the kind of community you want. You want supportive community, not people who are going to say, oh, it's no big deal. Oh, it's just a relapse, bro. Like, you might as well just stick with it. You screwed up, or, whatever. You want people who are going to help you with the goal that you have in mind. They're going to help you quit. So I hope that helped out everyone. I hope that that was a good little precursor, good little guide to helping out with addiction. If you guys have any other questions with addiction, any other issues, you can leave them in the comments below. If you have any more suggestions for Mental Health Monday, any other videos, the link will be in the description. Remember, everything's anonymous. I have no idea who sends in any of these. I have no idea who sent in today's. I do want to leave you guys on this note, though. This last closing up verse. It is 1 Corinthians 6:18. It says, flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. You should never try and fight an addiction or fight something, especially whenever it comes to lust and porn. All that's going to do is going to leave you in a cycle of repeated and followed through addiction that you never break. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. This is Noah with Simple Betterment. I'll see you next time.